Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the most luxurious prison cell ever built. Gold-plated bars, silk sheets, gourmet meals delivered 3 times a day. Now imagine that the door to this cell has been unlocked the entire time, but you've never tried to leave because you've convinced yourself it's locked. This is exactly what's happening in your mind right now. You're living in a prison of negative thoughts, self-imposed limitations, and mental patterns that keep you trapped in suffering. And the most shocking part is that you've had the key all along. Welcome to Stoic Mindset, where ancient wisdom meets modern challenges, where philosophy becomes practical, and where your transformation begins today. If you've clicked on this video, something inside you knows that there's a better way to think, a better way to live, and a better way to navigate the chaos of modern existence. And you're absolutely right. The Stoics figured this out over 2,000 years ago, and today I'm going to share with you their complete system for mastering positive thinking, not the fake, toxic positivity that tells you to smile while your house burns down, but real, practical, sustainable positive thinking that can weather any storm life throws at you. But here's what makes this different from every other video about positive thinking you've ever watched. We're not going to pretend that life is easy. We're not going to repeat empty affirmations in the mirror. We're not going to bypass the real pain and challenges you face. Instead, we're going to dive deep into the Stoic method that helped Marcus Aurelius maintain composure while leading Rome through plague and war, that helped Epictetus find freedom while living as a slave, that helped Seneca face exile and death with dignity. These weren't motivational speakers living comfortable lives. These were real people facing real adversity who developed a system so powerful that it's still transforming lives today. Before we dive into this life-changing content, do yourself a favor that your future self will thank you for. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for Stoic Mindset. Why? Because transformation doesn't happen in a single moment of inspiration. It happens through consistent exposure to wisdom, through daily practice, through being part of a community committed to growth. We're not just another self-help channel, we're your daily dose of practical philosophy that actually works. The fatal mistake, let me tell you about Sarah. She wakes up every morning and immediately starts her positive thinking routine. She looks in the mirror and says, "I am successful, I am loved, I am abundant," 20 times. She puts on her vision board screensaver, listens to motivational music on her commute, and tries desperately to maintain a positive attitude. But by noon, she's exhausted. By evening, she's back to the same negative thought patterns. By bedtime, she feels like a failure because despite all her efforts, she still feels miserable. Sound familiar? Sarah, like millions of others, is making the fatal mistake that keeps people trapped in negative thinking forever. She's trying to paint over rust without treating it first. She's trying to build a house on quicksand. She's trying to force positive thoughts without understanding the fundamental architecture of how thinking actually works. The Stoics understood something that modern positive thinking gurus seem to have forgotten. You cannot simply replace negative thoughts with positive ones through sheer willpower. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The moment you relax, it shoots back up with even more force. The negative thoughts you're suppressing don't disappear. They go underground into your subconscious, where they sabotage you in ways you don't even realize. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, faced assassination attempts, betrayals, the death of multiple children, and constant warfare. Do you think he maintained his legendary composure by repeating, "Everything is awesome," while his empire burned? Of course not. He used a completely different approach, one that actually works because it's based on how the human mind really operates, not on how we wish it operated. The Stoic approach to positive thinking rests on 3 foundational pillars that work together as an integrated system. First, the discipline of perception, learning to see things as they truly are, not as we fear or hope them to be. Second, the discipline of action, aligning our behavior with our values regardless of external circumstances. Third, the discipline of will, accepting what we cannot control while taking full responsibility for what we can. When you master these three disciplines, something miraculous happens. You don't need to force positive thoughts because they arise naturally from a mind that's properly aligned with reality. You don't need to suppress negative thoughts because they lose their power when you understand their true nature. You don't need to pretend everything is fine because you develop the strength to handle things even when they're not fine. The dichotomy of control. Now we arrive at the single most powerful concept in all of Stoic philosophy. The concept that will revolutionize how you think about literally everything in your life. Epictetus, who spent 30 years as a slave before becoming one of the most influential philosophers in history, discovered this principle through brutal first-hand experience. He said, "Some things are within our power while others are not." This sounds almost insultingly simple, doesn't it? But the depth of this idea is so profound that once you truly understand it, once you internalize it at the deepest level of your being, you will never be the same person again. Your entire relationship with reality will transform, and with it, your ability to maintain genuinely positive thinking regardless of circumstances. Let's make this concrete. Think about something that's causing you anxiety right now. Maybe it's a job interview next week, a health concern, a relationship issue, or financial stress. Got it? Now let's dissect it with surgical precision using the Stoic framework. What aspects of this situation are completely within your control? Your preparation, your effort, your honesty, your decisions, your responses, the values you choose to embody, the perspective you adopt. These elements are entirely under your command. You are the absolute sovereign of these territories. What aspects are outside your control? Other people's decisions, the economy, your past, your genetics, the weather, random events, others' opinions of you, the ultimate outcome. These elements exist in a realm where you have no direct power, no matter how much you wish otherwise. Now here's where the magic happens. When you focus all your mental energy exclusively on what you can control and completely accept what you cannot, anxiety literally cannot survive. Why? Because anxiety is fundamentally about trying to control the uncontrollable. It's like trying to steer a car from the passenger seat, exhausting, frustrating, and completely ineffective. But let's go even deeper. What exactly is within our control? The Stoics identified only 4 things: our judgments, our decisions, our desires, and our actions. That's it. Everything else, and I mean everything else, is ultimately outside our direct control. Your body, it can get sick despite your best efforts. Your reputation, it depends on others' perceptions. Your success, influenced by thousands of external factors. This isn't defeatism or resignation. It's the opposite. It's focusing your power where it actually makes a difference. Think of an Olympic archer. She controls her stance perfectly, regulates her breathing, maintains the exact right tension on the bow, chooses the perfect moment to release. But once that arrow leaves the bow, she lets it go completely. A gust of wind might blow it, of course. The target might move. That's no longer her concern. Her job was to execute perfectly what was within her control. The power of perception. The second pillar of Stoic positive thinking is perhaps the most misunderstood. It's not about seeing the world through rose-colored glasses or pretending that bad things are actually good. It's about developing what the Stoics called objective representation, seeing things as they actually are, stripped of the dramatic stories our minds love to create. Shakespeare, heavily influenced by Stoic philosophy, wrote, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." This isn't relativistic nonsense suggesting that nothing matters. It's pointing to a profound truth about human psychology. Events themselves are neutral. It's our judgments about them that create our emotional experience. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. 2 entrepreneurs launched identical startups in the same industry at the same time. After a year, both companies failed. The first entrepreneur interpreted this as proof that he was a failure, that he didn't have what it takes, that he should give up on his dreams. He fell into depression and never started another business. The second entrepreneur interpreted the same failure as an invaluable education that most people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for in business school. He took the lessons learned, started another company, and built a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Same event, completely different interpretations, completely different outcomes. The failure itself didn't determine their futures, their perception of the failure did. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. In his personal journal, which we now know as meditations, he would constantly reframe challenges as opportunities. A plague decimating Rome, an opportunity to demonstrate leadership and compassion. His best friend betraying him, a chance to practice forgiveness and justice. His son displaying signs of madness, a test of unconditional love and acceptance. This isn't toxic positivity. Marcus didn't pretend these things were pleasant or desirable. He acknowledged the difficulty while choosing an interpretation that empowered rather than victimized him. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The practice works like this. When something happens that typically triggers negative thinking, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. First, what is the objective fact stripped of my interpretation? Second, what story am I adding to this fact? Third, is there another story equally true or truer that would serve me better? Your car breaks down. Objective fact, the car has stopped functioning. Typical story, this always happens to me. I have the worst luck. This is going to ruin everything. Alternative story, this is an opportunity to practice patience, to test my problem-solving skills, to appreciate how often my car does work, to maybe meet someone interesting while waiting for help. The event hasn't changed, but your experience of it transforms completely based on the story you choose to tell yourself about it. If you're finding value in this deep dive into Stoic wisdom, support the Stoic Mindset channel by hitting that like button right now. It takes 1 second of your time, but makes a huge difference in helping this transformative content reach more people who need it. And trust me, in a world drowning in anxiety and negative thinking, a lot of people need this message. Building inner fortress, now we come to the third pillar, what the Stoics called the inner citadel. This is your unassailable fortress of character, built through the deliberate cultivation of virtue. And here's the crucial point that most people miss. Positive thinking without virtue is like a house without a foundation. It might look good for a while, but it will collapse at the first serious storm. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues that form the pillars of this inner fortress: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. But don't think of these as abstract moral concepts that only saints can achieve. Think of them as practical skills you can develop, like learning to play an instrument or speak a new language. Each time you practice them, you get stronger. Each time you fail to practice them, you get weaker. Let's start with wisdom. Not intellectual knowledge, but practical wisdom. What the Greeks called phronesis. This is the ability to see clearly, to understand what really matters, to distinguish between what appears to be important and what actually is important. It's the skill of perspective, of judgment, of discernment. How do you develop practical wisdom? Through a practice the Stoics called the view from above. Close your eyes and imagine yourself rising up from where you are right now. First you see the room you're in, then the building, then the neighborhood, the city, the country, the continent, and finally the entire earth floating in the vast emptiness of space. From this cosmic perspective, that thing you were worried about, the awkward conversation, the missed deadline, the social media comment, suddenly reveals its true size. It's not nothing, but it's not everything either. Carl Sagan captured this Stoic idea perfectly when he described Earth as a pale blue dot in the cosmic dark. Every person who has ever lived, every triumph and tragedy, every empire and revolution, all on a tiny speck of dust suspended in a sunbeam. This isn't meant to make you feel insignificant. It's meant to free you from the tyranny of false urgency and manufactured importance. Courage, in the Stoic sense, isn't the absence of fear. It's right action in the presence of fear. Seneca, who was one of the richest men in Rome, regularly practiced what he called rehearsal of evils. He would spend days sleeping on the floor, eating only bread and water, wearing his roughest clothes. Why would a wealthy man voluntarily live like a pauper? To prove to himself that he could survive without his wealth, thereby removing the fear of losing it. You can adapt this practice to your modern life. Afraid of rejection? Deliberately seek out small rejections. Ask for discounts. Make requests you expect to be denied. Apply for positions you think are beyond your reach. Each small act of courage builds your resilience muscle. You're not seeking rejection for its own sake. You're inoculating yourself against the fear of it. Justice for the Stoics wasn't about legal systems or punishment. It was about recognizing our fundamental interconnection with all human beings. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man in the world, he wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee either." We are all part of the same human organism, and what harms one harms all. This radically transforms your thinking patterns. Instead of seeing other people as competitors, threats, or means to an end, you see them as fellow travelers on the same difficult journey. Everyone is fighting invisible battles. Everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have. Everyone deserves basic dignity and respect. When you truly internalize this, something miraculous happens to your mental state. Envy disappears. Another's success doesn't diminish you. Anger softens. You understand that difficult people are usually acting from pain or fear. Social anxiety relaxes. You stop seeing every interaction as a performance to be judged. Temperance is perhaps the most relevant virtue for our age of infinite distraction and constant stimulation. It's not about deprivation or asceticism. It's about moderation, balance, and self-control. It's the ability to enjoy pleasures without becoming enslaved to them, to satisfy needs without creating dependencies. Think about how intemperance fuels negative thinking. You overeat and feel guilty. You overspend and worry about money. You overindulge in social media and feel inadequate. You oversleep and feel lazy. Each excess creates its own form of mental suffering. Temperance cuts these negative cycles at their root. When you moderate your consumption, regulate your habits and maintain balance, you stay in control of your life. And that control generates genuine confidence and positivity. Not the fake kind that needs constant external validation, but the real kind that comes from self-respect. The morning ritual. Let's get practical. How do you actually implement these Stoic principles in your daily life to transform your thinking patterns? It starts with morning ritual, but not the kind you might expect. This isn't about gratitude journals and affirmations. This is about mental preparation for the battlefield of daily life. Marcus Aurelius began each day with what we might call negative visualization, but it's not what you think. He would remind himself that during the day, he would encounter people who were dishonest, ungrateful, arrogant, treacherous, envious, and antisocial. Was he being pessimistic? No, he was being realistic. And by mentally preparing for these encounters, he robbed them of their power to disturb his peace. Here's your morning practice. Before you check your phone, before you turn on the news, before you let the chaos of the world invade your mental space, spend 10 minutes in what I call Stoic preparation. First, identify 3 challenges you might face today. Not catastrophes, just regular daily challenges. A difficult conversation, a boring task, a potential disappointment. For each challenge, identify what is and isn't within your control. Then decide how your best self would handle each situation. For example, I have a performance review today. Within my control, my preparation, my honesty, my professionalism, my receptiveness to feedback. outside my control, my boss's mood, the final rating, the raise decision. My best self would present my achievements clearly, listen to feedback without defensiveness, and maintain dignity regardless of the outcome. This isn't positive thinking in the conventional sense. You're not pretending the review will definitely go well. You're preparing yourself to handle it well regardless of how it goes. That's true positivity. The confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever happens. Second, practice what Epictetus called the discipline of desire. Look at your day and identify what you're hoping will happen. Maybe you're hoping traffic will be light, that your colleague will be in a good mood, that the weather will be nice. Now mentally release these hopes. Not in a pessimistic way, but with the understanding that these things are not under your control. Replace "I hope traffic is light" with "I will leave early enough and use any traffic time for audiobooks or reflection." Replace "I hope my colleague is pleasant" with "I will maintain my professionalism regardless of others' moods." This shifts you from a passive hope that things go your way to an active commitment to make the best of however things go. Third, set your intention for virtue. Choose one virtue to focus on today. Maybe today is a courage day. You'll do one thing that scares you. Maybe it's a temperance day. You'll practice moderation in all things. Maybe it's a wisdom day. You'll seek to understand before being understood. Having this focus gives your day purpose beyond just getting through your to-do list. The afternoon reset. By midday, the morning's good intentions often collide with reality's chaos. This is when most people's positive thinking crumbles. You started the day determined to stay positive, but then your boss criticized your work. Your lunch order was wrong. Someone was rude to you. And now you're spiraling into negativity. The Stoics had a practice for this exact moment. They called it prososh, continuous attention to the present moment. Not in a mystical, empty your mind way, but in a practical, where is my power right now way. Here's your afternoon reset protocol. When you feel negativity creeping in, stop whatever you're doing for 60 seconds. This isn't meditation, it's recalibration. Ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Is this story helping or hurting me? What's actually happening versus what I'm imagining might happen? What can I control in this moment? What virtue does this situation call for? Let's say your boss harshly criticized your presentation. The default story might be, she hates me, I'm terrible at my job, I'm going to get fired, I'll never succeed. But stop. What actually happened? She identified specific areas for improvement in one presentation. That's a fact. Everything else is a story you're adding. Alternative story. She gave me specific feedback I can use to improve. This is an opportunity to demonstrate resilience and growth mindset. Her delivery was harsh, but that's about her communication style, not my worth. I can control how I respond and how I improve. Same event, completely different experience. And here's the key. The second story isn't delusional optimism. It's actually more accurate than the catastrophizing story. It acknowledges the reality, harsh criticism, while choosing an empowering response. The Stoics understood that our minds are meaning-making machines. We can't stop making meaning, but we can choose what kind of meaning we make, and that choice determines whether we live in mental heaven or hell. The evening examination, Seneca, ended each day with a practice that's absolutely essential for developing lasting positive thinking patterns. He called it the evening examination, and it's nothing like the self-flagellation that many people engage in before bed, replaying every mistake and embarrassment of the day. Instead, Seneca would calmly review his day like a scientist reviewing experimental data. No harsh judgment, no emotional drama, just clear observation and learning. He would ask himself, where did I act according to my values? Where did I fall short? What did I learn? How can I improve tomorrow? This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about continuous improvement. Think of it like reviewing game film if you're an athlete. You're not watching to torture yourself with mistakes, you're watching to get better. Here's your evening practice. Before bed, take 10 minutes to review your day through the Stoic lens, but structure it specifically to build positive thinking patterns. First, identify 3 moments where you successfully applied Stoic principles. Maybe you remained calm during a confrontation. Maybe you helped someone without expecting anything in return. Maybe you accepted a disappointment with grace. Acknowledge these victories, however small. This isn't empty self-congratulation. It's reinforcing positive patterns. Second, identify 1 moment where you could have responded better, not 10 moments, just 1. And here's the crucial part. Don't just identify what went wrong. Identify specifically how you'll handle similar situations better next time. This transforms regret into learning, mistakes into growth opportunities. Third, practice what Marcus Aurelius called the view of the whole. Zoom out and see your day as one small part of your entire life. Your life as one small part of human history as one small part of cosmic time. This isn't to diminish your experience, but to put it in perspective. That embarrassing moment that feels like the end of the world, in the grand scheme, it's barely a blip. If you're still watching at this point, you're clearly serious about transformation, not just entertainment. This is exactly the kind of commitment we cultivate at Stoic Mindset. Subscribe now and join a community of people who are done with surface-level self-help and ready for wisdom that actually works. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our daily dose of practical philosophy. The social dimension. One of the biggest misconceptions about Stoicism is that it promotes cold detachment from others. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Stoics understood that we are fundamentally social beings, and that positive thinking in isolation from others is both impossible and meaningless. Marcus Aurelius, despite dealing with constant betrayals and disappointments, wrote, "Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions. Nothing else can give us as much joy as the images of the virtues shining forth in the character of our contemporaries." But here's where Stoic social philosophy gets really interesting. They didn't say, surround yourself only with positive people or cut toxic people out of your life, advice that's often impractical and sometimes impossible. Instead, they developed strategies for maintaining positive thinking even when dealing with difficult people. The key is what Epictetus called the discipline of action. This means always acting according to your values, regardless of how others act toward you. Someone is rude to you, that's their choice. Your choice is how to respond. You can't control their rudeness, but you can control whether you let it dictate your behavior. This isn't about being a doormat. It's about maintaining your integrity and peace regardless of provocation. Think of it like martial arts, using the opponent's energy against them rather than meeting force with force. When someone attacks you verbally and you respond with calm dignity, you've won without fighting. Here's a practical exercise. Choose one difficult person in your life. Now reframe them as your teacher. What are they teaching you? Patience, boundary setting, compassion for people who are clearly suffering, the ability to maintain composure under pressure. Every difficult person is a gym for your virtue muscles. The Stoics also practiced something called sympathia, recognizing the interconnectedness of all things. When you truly understand that we're all part of the same human organism, dealing with the same fundamental challenges, struggling with the same fears and desires, compassion becomes natural. And compassion is the ultimate positive thinking. It transforms potential enemies into fellow humans deserving understanding. The paradox of acceptance. Now we reach one of the most counterintuitive aspects of Stoic positive thinking, the idea that true positivity comes not from changing reality, but from radically accepting it. This sounds like the opposite of positive thinking, doesn't it? But stick with me, because this is where the real transformation happens. Amor fati, love of fate, was Nietzsche's favorite Stoic concept. It means not just accepting what happens, but embracing it, loving it, seeing it as exactly what needed to happen for your growth and development. This isn't passive resignation, it's active engagement with reality as it is, not as you wish it were. Think about water. When water encounters an obstacle, it doesn't stop and complain. It doesn't try to go through the rock. It finds a way around, over, or under. It adapts perfectly to reality while maintaining its essential nature and ultimately reaching its destination. This is the Stoic approach to life's challenges. Let's make this practical. You're stuck in traffic. Option 1. Rage against the traffic. Stress about being late, ruin your mood and probably your whole day. Option 2. Accept the traffic as today's reality and ask, how can I use this? Maybe it's time for that podcast you've been meaning to listen to. Maybe it's a rare moment of solitude in your busy life. Maybe it's an opportunity to practice patience. The traffic hasn't changed, but your experience of it has transformed completely. And here's the magical part. When you stop resisting reality, you free up enormous amounts of mental energy that were being wasted on futile resistance. That energy can now be redirected toward actual positive action. The Stoics took this to extremes that might seem shocking to modern sensibilities. When Epictetus's master broke his leg, while Epictetus was still a slave, Epictetus supposedly said calmly, "I told you it would break if you kept twisting it." No anger, no resentment, just matter-of-fact acceptance and moving forward. You don't need to go to such extremes, but you can apply the principle. Next time something bad happens, try this thought experiment. What if this had to happen? What if this is exactly what you needed for your development, even if you can't see how yet? What if, in 5 years, you'll look back on this as the best thing that could have happened? This isn't delusional. Many of our worst moments become our most valuable experiences in retrospect. The Stoic approach is simply to skip the years of resentment and jump straight to the learning and growth. The practice of premeditatio malorum. Here's where Stoic positive thinking gets really counterintuitive. The Stoics regularly practice something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They would deliberately imagine losing everything they valued. Sounds like the opposite of positive thinking, right? But this practice is actually one of the most powerful tools for maintaining genuine positivity. Here's why. Fear of loss creates more suffering than actual loss. We spend enormous mental energy worrying about things that might happen, defending against imaginary threats, trying to control the uncontrollable. This creates a constant background anxiety that poisons our ability to think positively. The Stoic solution is brilliant. Face your fears directly in a controlled, philosophical way. Imagine losing your job. Really imagine it. What would you do? How would you survive? What opportunities might open up? When you've mentally rehearsed the scenario, 2 things happen. First, you realize you could handle it. You're more resilient than you think. Second, the fear loses its power over you. Seneca practiced this religiously. Despite being wealthy, he would regularly live as if he were poor, sleeping on the floor, eating plain food, wearing rough clothes. Then he would ask himself, is this what I was so afraid of? This is nothing. By voluntarily experiencing what he feared, he removed fear's power over him. Modern psychological research has validated this ancient practice. Exposure therapy, one of the most effective treatments for anxiety, is essentially structured premeditatio malorum. By facing our fears in a controlled way, we desensitize ourselves to them. Here's your practice. Once a week, spend 15 minutes on philosophical negative visualization. Choose something you're afraid of losing: your health, your relationship, your job, your savings. Calmly imagine losing it, not in a paranoid catastrophizing way, but philosophically. How would you respond? What virtues would you need to call upon? How might you grow from the experience? This isn't morbid or pessimistic. It's preparation. Like a fire drill, it ensures that if disaster strikes, you won't panic. You'll respond with wisdom and grace. And paradoxically, when you're no longer afraid of loss, you're free to fully enjoy what you have. The virtue feedback loop. Here's something fascinating about Stoic positive thinking that most people miss. It creates a self-reinforcing feedback loop. The more you practice virtue, the more naturally positive your thinking becomes. The more positive your thinking, the easier it becomes to practice virtue. It's an upward spiral that builds momentum over time. Let me explain how this works. When you act with courage, even in small ways, you build self-respect. That self-respect makes you feel more positive about yourself and your capabilities. That positivity gives you energy to act with more courage. Each cycle strengthens the pattern. The same happens with all four virtues. When you act with wisdom, making good decisions based on clear thinking, you avoid many problems that would otherwise create negativity. When you act with justice, treating others fairly, you build positive relationships that support your mental well-being. When you practice temperance, moderating your desires and impulses, you avoid the guilt and regret that come from excess. But here's the key. You have to start the loop manually. Positive thinking won't just happen spontaneously. You have to prime the pump through deliberate practice of virtue, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. This is why the Stoics emphasized action over feeling. They understood that you can't always control how you feel, but you can always control how you act. And when you act according to virtue consistently, your feelings eventually align with your actions. Think of it like exercise. You might not feel like working out, but you do it anyway. After a while, your body starts craving exercise. You feel worse when you don't work out than when you do. The same happens with virtue. It becomes its own reward. The reality check. Let's be brutally honest for a moment. The kind of positive thinking I'm describing isn't easy. It's not a quick fix. It's not a magic pill that will instantly make you happy. Anyone who tells you that positive thinking is easy is either lying or selling something. The Stoic path requires discipline, practice, and often going against your natural instincts. When someone insults you, your instinct is to insult them back. When you face setback, your instinct is to feel sorry for yourself. When you lose something valuable, your instinct is to rage against the unfairness of it all. Stoic positive thinking asks you to override these instincts with reason and virtue. It asks you to respond to insults with dignity, to setbacks with resilience, to loss with acceptance. This is hard work. It's mental and emotional labor that never really ends. But here's why it's worth it. The alternative is worse. Living at the mercy of your emotions, bouncing between highs and lows based on external events, constantly anxious about the future and regretful about the past. That's not easier. It's just familiar. It's like staying in a bad relationship because you're afraid of being alone. The familiar suffering feels safer than the unknown alternative. The Stoics offer a third way, neither emotional chaos nor emotional suppression, but emotional wisdom. You still feel emotions, but you're not controlled by them. You still have preferences, but you're not enslaved to them. You still experience pain, but you don't add suffering to it through resistance and dramatization. This is what real positive thinking looks like. It's not constant happiness, it's consistent equanimity. It's not avoiding all negative experiences, it's maintaining your center through all experiences. It's not pretending everything is fine, it's being fine regardless of everything. The modern application. Now let's talk about how to apply these ancient principles to uniquely modern challenges. The Stoics didn't have social media, but they dealt with reputation and public opinion. They didn't have email, but they dealt with overwhelming demands on their time. They didn't have 24/7 news, but they dealt with anxiety about events beyond their control. Take social media. Every time you post something, you're essentially handing your emotional state over to strangers on the internet. If the post gets lots of likes, you feel validated. If it gets ignored or criticized, you feel rejected. You've made your mental well-being dependent on factors completely outside your control. The Stoic approach. Post according to your values, then let go of the outcome. Share what you believe is valuable or true, then practice complete indifference to the response. This doesn't mean you don't learn from feedback, but you don't let it determine your self-worth or consider the constant barrage of bad news. Every day, your phone delivers fresh horrors from around the world. Wars, disasters, injustices, tragedies, an endless stream of negativity that makes positive thinking seem naive or impossible. The Stoic approach. Distinguish between being informed and being overwhelmed. Yes, stay aware of important events, but recognize that consuming endless news about things you can't influence is a form of mental self-harm. Focus on what you can actually affect. Your local community, your family, your own behavior. As Marcus Aurelius said, confine yourself to the present. What about comparison culture? Everyone on social media seems happier, more successful, more attractive. Your college roommate just bought their second house while you're still renting. Your colleague got promoted while you didn't. How can you think positively when you're confident of someone who knows that either you'll overcome the obstacle or the obstacle will overcome you and make you stronger in the process? Either way, you grow. The Daily Practice Protocol. Let's get ultra practical now. Here's a complete daily protocol for developing Stoic positive thinking. This isn't theory. This is a specific, actionable system you can start tomorrow. Morning, 10 minutes. Wake up and before checking your phone, do the 3 preparations. Identify 3 challenges you might face today and decide how your ideal self would handle them. Choose one virtue to focus on. Wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance. Practice negative visualization for 2 minutes. Imagine losing something you value and how you'd handle it. Midday, 5 minutes. The Stoic reset. Stop whatever you're doing. Ask, what story am I telling myself right now? 3. Ask, is this story helpful or harmful? 4. Ask, what can I control in this moment? 5. Choose one small action aligned with your morning virtue. Evening, 10 minutes. The philosophical review. Identify 3 moments where you acted according to Stoic principles. 2. Identify one moment where you could have responded. Better 3. Practice the view from above. See your day from cosmic perspective. 4. Set your intention for tomorrow. This might seem like a lot, but it's only 25 minutes total. Less time than most people spend scrolling social media. And unlike scrolling, this practice actually improves your mental state rather than degrading it. The key is consistency. Don't try to be perfect. That's not Stoic. Just show up every day and do the practice, even if you do it imperfectly. As Epictetus said, no one becomes excellent all at once. It requires daily practice. The comparison trapone of the biggest obstacles to positive thinking in our modern world is constant comparison. Social media has weaponized our natural tendency to measure ourselves against others, creating a 24/7 comparison engine that makes everyone feel inadequate. The Stoics had a powerful antidote to comparison: focus on your own excellence. They understood that the only meaningful competition is with yourself. Are you better than you were yesterday? Are you living up to your own potential? Are you acting according to your values? These are the only questions that matter. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, never compared himself to other emperors. Instead, he constantly measured himself against his ideal of what a good person should be. He wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." This doesn't mean you don't learn from others or seek inspiration from those who've achieved what you aspire to. But there's a huge difference between inspiration and comparison. Inspiration energizes you to pursue your own excellence. Comparison drains your energy through envy and self-pity. Here's a practical exercise. For 1 week, every time you catch yourself comparing yourself to someone else, immediately redirect your attention to your own growth. Instead of, "They're so much more successful than me," ask, "What can I do today to move toward my goals?" Instead of, "They have such a perfect life," remind yourself, "I'm only seeing their highlight reel, not their behind the scenes." The truth is, everyone you're comparing yourself to is fighting battles you know nothing about. That Instagram influencer with the perfect life might be dealing with crippling anxiety. That successful entrepreneur might be going through a divorce. That fitness model might have an eating disorder. You never know the full story, so comparison is not just painful, it's based on incomplete information. The gratitude paradox. Now we need to talk about gratitude, but not the superficial gratitude journal kind that's become so popular. Stoic gratitude is different. It's gratitude with teeth, gratitude with depth, gratitude that comes from truly understanding the nature of reality. The Stoics practice gratitude through remembering that everything we have is on loan. Your health, your relationships, your possessions, your life itself, none of it is permanently yours. It's all temporary, and it can all be taken away at any moment. This might sound depressing, but it's actually the key to genuine appreciation. When you truly understand that you could lose everything tomorrow, today becomes infinitely precious. Every moment with loved ones becomes sacred. Every breath becomes a gift. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. Despite being emperor, he would remind himself that his power was temporary, his life was fleeting, and everything he enjoyed could disappear in an instant. This didn't make him paranoid, it made him grateful. He wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." Here's how to practice Stoic gratitude. Instead of listing things you're grateful for, choose one thing you usually take for granted: your eyesight, your ability to walk, your morning coffee. Now imagine losing it permanently. Really feel the loss. Then open your eyes and recognize that you still have it for now. Feel the profound appreciation that comes from recognizing the temporary nature of this gift. This practice transforms gratitude from a mental exercise into a visceral experience. You don't just think, "I'm grateful for my health." You feel the preciousness of every heartbeat. You don't just acknowledge your relationships. You treasure every conversation, knowing it could be the last. The wisdom of insults. Here's a situation everyone faces that devastates positive thinking: being insulted, criticized, or disrespected. Someone attacks your character, questions your competence, or treats you with contempt. How can you possibly maintain positive thinking when people are actively trying to tear you down? The Stoics had a brilliant approach to insults that completely diffuses their power. When insulted, they would first ask, "Is it true?" If yes, then the person has done you a favor by pointing out something you need to work on. You should thank them, not be offended. If no, then they're simply mistaken, and why would you be upset by someone's mistake? Epictetus put it perfectly. It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those things. An insult is just sound waves or marks on a screen. It only becomes painful when you accept it, internalize it, and add your own negative story to it. Here's the advanced practice. When someone insults you, imagine they're speaking in a language you don't understand. You'd hear the angry tone, but the words would have no power because they'd have no meaning to you. Now realize that even in your own language, the words only have the meaning you give them. You can choose to give them no meaning at all. This isn't about becoming callous or never accepting feedback. It's about distinguishing between useful criticism delivered poorly and empty attacks meant only to hurt. The former you can learn from, the latter you can ignore. The Stoics went even further. They saw difficult people as training partners for virtue. That person who's incredibly rude to you, they're helping you practice patience. The colleague who takes credit for your work, they're helping you practice doing good for its own sake, not for recognition. The family member who pushes all your buttons, they're helping you practice unconditional love. The time perspective, one of the most powerful Stoic tools for positive thinking, is manipulating time perspective. The Stoics understood that most negative thinking comes from being stuck in the wrong temporal frame, either dwelling on the past or anxious about the future. The solution isn't just be present. That's too vague to be useful. The Stoic approach is more sophisticated. Consciously choose the time perspective that serves you best in each situation. When facing a major problem, zoom out to the 10-year perspective. Will this matter in a decade? Almost certainly not. Most of what seems catastrophic today will be forgotten or irrelevant in 10 years. This doesn't minimize current pain, but it prevents you from catastrophizing. When feeling overwhelmed by long-term goals, zoom in to the next single action. You can't write a book, but you can write one sentence. You can't get in shape, but you can do one push-up. You can't save for retirement, but you can save $1. The journey of 1,000 miles doesn't just begin with a single step. It consists entirely of single steps. When dealing with loss or disappointment, use the historical perspective. Billions of humans have faced similar losses and survived. Every heartbreak you've experienced has been experienced millions of times throughout history. You're not alone in your suffering. You're part of the human experience. When enjoying good times, use the momentary perspective. This exact configuration of circumstances will never happen again. These people will never be exactly this age again. This sunset is unique in the history of the universe. Presence isn't just about being here now. It's about recognizing the irreplaceable uniqueness of now. If this deep dive into Stoic wisdom is resonating with you, you're exactly the kind of person we created Stoic Mindset for. We're not interested in views from people looking for quick entertainment. We want to build a community of serious practitioners who are committed to applying these principles in real life. Subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and join us on this journey of practical philosophy. The emotional alchemy. Let's talk about something that confuses many people about Stoicism, the role of emotions. Stoics aren't emotionless robots. They experience the full range of human emotions. The difference is they've learned to work with emotions rather than being controlled by them. The Stoics distinguished between initial impressions and judgments. When something happens, you have an immediate automatic emotional response. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you feel a flash of anger. You get bad news and feel a stab of fear. You see something beautiful and feel a surge of joy. These initial impressions are natural and involuntary. Even the sage experiences them. What matters is what happens next. Most people automatically accept and amplify these initial impressions. The flash of anger becomes rage and fantasies of revenge. The stab of fear becomes anxiety and catastrophizing. The surge of joy becomes attachment and fear of loss. The Stoic practice is to pause between impression and judgment. Feel the emotion, acknowledge it, but don't automatically accept its narrative. That flash of anger when cut off in traffic. Notice it, then choose your response. Maybe the person is rushing to the hospital. Maybe they just got terrible news. Maybe they're simply a poor driver who needs compassion, not rage. This isn't suppression. You're not pretending you didn't feel anger. It's emotional alchemy, transforming raw emotional material into something useful. Anger becomes determination. Fear becomes caution. Sadness becomes compassion. Envy becomes inspiration. The key is developing what the Stoics called apatheia, often mistranslated as apathy. It doesn't mean not caring. It means not being pathologically disturbed by external events. It's the difference between feeling sad, natural, and falling into depression, unnecessary suffering added to natural sadness. Think of emotions like weather. You can't control whether it rains, but you can choose whether to curse the rain or dance in it. You can't prevent storms, but you can build a strong house. You can't make every day sunny, but you can appreciate the sun when it appears. The success paradox. Here's something counterintuitive about Stoic positive thinking. The less you need external success to be positive, the more likely you are to achieve external success. This isn't mystical law of attraction nonsense. It's practical psychology. When you're desperately attached to outcomes, you create anxiety that impairs performance. Athletes call it choking, wanting to win so badly that you tighten up and play worse. The same happens in all areas of life. The desperate job seeker interviews poorly. The needy romantic partner pushes people away. The anxious presenter stumbles over words, but when you practice stoic indifference to outcomes, when you focus entirely on what you can control and accept whatever results, you paradoxically perform better. You're relaxed, present, authentic. You make better decisions because you're not clouded by desperation. You take appropriate risks because you're not paralyzed by fear of failure. This doesn't mean you don't care about success or don't work toward goals. It means you pursue excellence for its own sake, not for external validation. You do your best because that's who you are, not because of what you might get. Marcus Aurelius ran the Roman Empire with this attitude. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present task and focus on doing it well. Not for glory or recognition, but because that's what a human being is supposed to do." The practical application. Before any performance situation, interview, presentation, date, competition, remind yourself that you control your preparation and effort, not the outcome. Decide to give your best regardless of results. Then let go. Whatever happens, happens. You'll either get what you want or you'll get a learning experience. Either way, you win. The virtue of obstacles. We need to go deeper into why obstacles are actually essential for positive thinking, not impediments to it. Without obstacles, life would be meaningless. Imagine a video game with no challenges, no enemies, no puzzles, just walking from the start to the finish. It would be boring beyond belief. The same is true of life. Obstacles give life meaning, growth, story. Every hero's journey requires challenges. Every character arc requires conflict. Every achievement worth celebrating required overcoming difficulty. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't just tolerate obstacles, they were grateful for them. Cato the Younger, one of the most respected Stoics, deliberately sought out challenges. He would walk barefoot in winter, wear uncomfortable clothing, endure mockery without response. Why? Because he understood that comfort makes us soft, and softness makes us vulnerable to life's inevitable hardships. You don't need to go to such extremes, but you can shift your relationship with obstacles. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this here to teach me?" Instead of, "This shouldn't be happening," try, "This is exactly what needs to happen for my growth." Every obstacle is a doorway to a virtue. Financial problems develop resourcefulness and appreciation. Health challenges develop courage and perspective. Relationship difficulties develop patience and communication skills. Professional setbacks develop resilience and creativity. But here's the key: you have to walk through the doorway. The obstacle only becomes the way when you engage with it fully, not when you avoid it or wish it away. The Stoics called this the discipline of desire, wanting what happens, because what happens is what you need for your development. The compound effect Stoic positive thinking isn't about dramatic transformation overnight. It's about tiny improvements compounded over time. Marcus Aurelius didn't become wise in a day. He spent decades refining his thinking, one small insight at a time. This is actually encouraging, not discouraging. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to master everything immediately. You just need to be slightly better today than yesterday. 1% improvement daily compounds to 3,000 to 700% improvement in a year. That's the difference between who you are now and who you could barely imagine becoming. The practice is simple. Each day, catch one negative thought pattern and reframe it using Stoic principles. Just one. Maybe today you catch yourself catastrophizing and apply the dichotomy of control. Tomorrow, you catch yourself comparing and redirect to self-improvement. The next day you catch yourself ruminating and practice presence. These seem like tiny victories, almost insignificant, but they compound. Each reframe weakens the negative pattern and strengthens the positive one. Neural pathways that fire together wire together. Over time, the Stoic response becomes more natural than the negative one. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. Better to practice 5 minutes daily than 5 hours once a month. The daily practice creates momentum, builds habits, rewires your brain. It's not about heroic efforts, it's about patient persistence. Think of it like erosion. Water doesn't break rock through force, but through persistence. Drip by drip, day by day, the water wears away the stone. Your negative thought patterns are like rock. They seem solid and permanent. But consistent Stoic practice is like water, gentle but relentless, eventually reshaping everything. As we near the end of this journey, let's integrate everything we've learned into a coherent philosophy of positive thinking that you can actually live by. Stoic positive thinking isn't a technique you use sometimes. It's a complete operating system for your mind. The foundation is the dichotomy of control. Every thought, every decision, every moment begins with distinguishing what you control from what you don't. This isn't a one-time realization, but a constant practice, like breathing. It becomes the background process always running in your mental operating system. Built on this foundation are the 4 virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These aren't abstract ideals, but practical tools. Wisdom helps you see clearly. Courage helps you act despite fear. Justice connects you with others. Temperance keeps you balanced. Every situation calls for one or more of these virtues. The 3 disciplines, perception, action, and will, are how you apply the virtues in real time. You discipline your perception to see reality clearly, not through the lens of fear or desire. You discipline your action to align with your values, regardless of external pressures. You discipline your will to accept what you cannot control while taking responsibility for what you can. Supporting all of this are the daily practices: morning preparation, afternoon reset, evening review. These create the rhythm that keeps you on track, like a drummer keeping time for a band. Without this rhythm, you'll drift back into old patterns, and encompassing everything is amor fati, love of fate. Not resignation, but embrace. Not passive acceptance, but active engagement. Whatever happens is the perfect thing to happen for your development at this moment. The universe is your personal trainer, and every experience is designed to make you stronger. This isn't a philosophy for the weak. It's not about avoiding life's difficulties or pretending they don't exist. It's about developing the strength to face anything with equanimity, wisdom, and even joy. It's about becoming anti-fragile, not just resilient, but actually strengthened by stresses. You've now been exposed to 2,000 years of wisdom condensed into practical principles. You can apply immediately, but exposure means nothing without application. Knowledge without action is impotent. Philosophy without practice is just intellectual entertainment. So here's your call to action, not just for today, but for life. First, commit to the practice. Choose one Stoic exercise from this video and do it for the next 30 days without exception. Not all of them, that's too much. Just one, but every single day. Mark it on your calendar. Set reminders. Treat it as non-negotiable as brushing your teeth. Second, join the community. Subscribe to Stoic Mindset right now if you haven't already. But don't just subscribe, engage. Comment on videos with your experiences. Share what's working and what's challenging. Learn from others on the same path. Philosophy is best practiced in community, not isolation. Third, go deeper. This video is just the beginning. Read the primary sources: Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, Epictetus's Discourses, Seneca's Letters. But read them actively, not passively. After each reading session, write down one principle you'll apply that day. Fourth, teach others. The best way to internalize these principles is to share them. You don't need to be an expert. Just share what you're learning and how you're applying it. Start a journal, write a blog, have conversations. Teaching forces clarity and deepens understanding. Fifth, be patient with yourself. You're attempting to rewire thought patterns that have been reinforced for years or decades. There will be setbacks. You'll forget to practice. You'll fall back into old patterns. This is normal and expected. What matters isn't perfection, but persistence. The Stoics believed in something called the eternal recurrence, the idea that you might have to live your exact life over and over again for eternity. Would you be okay with that? Would you embrace reliving every moment, both good and bad, forever? This isn't about whether eternal recurrence is literally true. It's about living in a way that you wouldn't want to change, even if you had to repeat it forever. It's about making choices you won't regret, building character you can be proud of, developing wisdom that enriches every moment. The ultimate promise, Stoicism, doesn't promise you'll always be happy. It doesn't promise life will be easy. It doesn't promise you'll get everything you want. Those are false promises made by false prophets selling false hope. Stoicism promises something better, that you can handle anything life throws at you, that you can find meaning in suffering, that you can maintain your center in chaos, that you can grow through adversity, that you can live with dignity regardless of circumstances. It promises that you'll stop being a victim of your thoughts and become their master, that you'll stop being tossed around by emotions and learn to surf them, that you'll stop needing external validation and find internal satisfaction, that you'll stop fearing the future and embrace uncertainty. Most importantly, it promises that you'll develop what the Stoics called eudaimonia, human flourishing. Not happiness in the modern sense of feeling good, but happiness in the ancient sense of living well. The deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you're living according to your values, fulfilling your potential, contributing to something greater than yourself. This isn't easy. If it were easy, everyone would do it. But it's simple. The principles are clear. The practices are straightforward. The path is well marked by those who've walked it before. All that's required is your decision to begin and your commitment to continue. As we close, remember that watching this video doesn't make you a Stoic any more than watching a workout video makes you fit. Stoicism is a practice, not a theory. It's a way of life, not a set of ideas. It's a daily discipline, not a one-time decision. The ancient Stoics had a saying, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Your old way of thinking, your negative patterns, your victim mentality, that chapter is ending. But only if you choose to end it. Only if you decide that today marks a new beginning. You now have the tools. You understand the principles. You know the practices. The question isn't whether you can do this. The Stoics proved that anyone can, from slaves to emperors. The question is whether you will. Will you take responsibility for your thoughts? Will you focus on what you can control? Will you reframe obstacles as opportunities? Will you practice virtue regardless of circumstances? Will you accept reality while working to improve it? Will you join the ranks of those who've chosen wisdom over ignorance, courage over cowardice, discipline over chaos? The choice is yours. It always has been. That's the ultimate Stoic truth. You always have a choice. External events are not up to you, but your response is. You can't control what happens, but you can control what you do about it. You can't determine outcomes, but you can determine your character. So choose wisdom. Choose virtue. Choose growth. Choose the difficult path that leads to strength over the easy path that leads to weakness. Choose to be the author of your thoughts rather than their victim. Choose Stoicism. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles doesn't begin with a single step. It begins with the decision to take that step. Make the decision. Take the step. Begin the journey. Your future self is watching you right now, hoping you'll make the choice that transforms everything. Don't disappoint them. This is Stoic mindset, and this is your invitation to a completely different way of thinking and living. The invitation is extended. The door is open. The path is clear. Welcome to your new life. Welcome to Stoic positive thinking. Welcome to the practice that will change everything. The time is now. The place is here. The person is you. Begin. If you've watched all the way to the end, you're clearly serious about transformation. Prove it to yourself by taking action right now. Subscribe to Stoic Mindset. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs this wisdom. But most importantly, choose one principle from this video and apply it today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today, because the Stoics knew a secret. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. Your new way of thinking starts now. Your practice begins now. Your transformation launches now. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Stoic positive thinking. This is just the beginning. At Stoic Mindset, we go this deep every single day, exploring practical wisdom for modern life. Join us and let's walk this path together. Until next time, remember, you have everything you need within you right now to think positively, live virtuously, and flourish regardless of circumstances. You just need to choose to use it. Stay stoic.